Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. I am your host, Lonnie Jones. My wife Jackie and I moved to the city of Huntsville in 1986 for me to be a youth and family minister. I have been a minister since 1980. I have served in this community as a police chaplain assigned to a SWAT team since 1992, and I've been in private practice as a licensed professional counselor since 1998. I'm also an adventure educator and an avid outdoorsman. I dabble in rock climbing and I goof around with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Our life has been full of many wonderful experiences and some just outright adventures. I used to write about those things in a little church bulletin article. So now instead of asking you to read those things, we're just going to talk about them in our podcast. And as we talk about them, we're going to talk about the facts. The facts lead to concepts, and the concepts lead to application. One caveat about the facts is, for the most part, we're going to tell you the facts just as they happened. But every now and then, we're going to tell you the way other people have told us they remember it happening with a little bit of embellishment. It's all good, clean fun and for educational purposes. Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoy Keeping Up with Jones. Faulkner University announces a 60% tuition discount for members of the Church of Christ. Now, there are some guidelines. This 60% tuition reduction is applicable to adult undergraduate Bible degrees or graduate Bible degrees from the Curley Graduate School of Theology in the VP Black College of Biblical Studies. You must satisfy all admission requirements and maintain satisfactory academic progress. You must remain continuously enrolled, including summers, until the completion of the degree. You must provide a letter from an elder or minister, preferably on church letterhead, verifying that you're an active member of a Church of Christ congregation prior to your initial enrollment. This offer applies to adult undergraduate degrees such as biblical studies, youth and family ministry tracks, and it also includes graduate degrees. And those are the Master of Arts in Biblical Studies, the Master of Arts in Family Life Ministry, or a Master of Theology, and it also applies to the PhD in Biblical Studies. For undergraduate inquiries, please contact Adult Enrollment, 334-386-7140, 334-386-7140, or Adult Enrollment at Faulkner edu. That is Adult Enrollment at faulkner.edu. For graduate inquiries, please call 334-386-7539, 334-386-7539. Graduate enrollment at faulkner.edu. That is graduate enrollment at faulkner.edu. Faulkner University is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. TKM Incorporated in Moss, Tennessee is a construction company that specializes in erosion control, seeding, and soil, hydroseeding, hydromulch, minor excavation, and silt fence. They also provide traffic control and construction signs. Their business is keeping people safe, but their passion, their mission, is they wish that all men could be saved. TKM has adopted the nickname the King's Men because as they serve you, they also serve the King. If they could provide any of their services for you, please contact them at 931-243-3958. That is 931-243-3958. Or you can contact them on the net at tkminc2001 at twlakes.net. That is tkminc2001 at twlakes.net. TKM Incorporated is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. I'm using too generic a term. I'm being overgeneralized, but there's an area in North Alabama that I call the Paint Rock Valley. Now, it probably is all the land where the Paint Rock River flows. but I refer to the mountains there. I refer to the tops of the mountains where I've been able to hunt and fish and camp and climb. That entire area of North Alabama is one of the prettiest places I've ever been. And in fact, it's in my top 5 favorite places on the planet. And I've seen some beautiful places. But you get into the subtropical Appalachian Mountains of North Alabama, and that little area is one of my favorites. I've camped and fished and rock climbed and rappelled and been underground in pits and hiked and hunted and been able to fish with my dad and fish with my grandson. And I've been able to hunt frogs with Gunner. I've hunted some really special places. The little piece of property that Greg Richards owns up on top of Maxwell Mountain. The piece of property that Dennis Brothers and I hunt that belongs to Judge Watson. I've hunted and fished at Bobby Smith's place right there at the foot of Putman Mountain. And then, of course, Jim Goins' place up on top of Putman Mountain. So I've hunted there and fished with my dad and my son-in-law and my daughter and my grandson. I've done lots of things. I've taken kids to retreats up at Estill Fork and spent the night in that old lodge. I've done lots of things in Paint Rock Valley. I do not ever remember crying as I drove out of Paint Rock Valley. But I was today just a little bit. I had read on Facebook or seen on Facebook a picture with a crudely drawn diagram, and a guy had shown that how he'd had his knee destroyed at a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament. Now, I'm not a sports psychologist, but I am a counselor, and I do a lot of counseling for young men who are into the sports. Well, I just reached out to this guy and said, hey, I'm affiliated with the 10th Planet Gym in Decatur. And I sometimes am the unofficial counselor for those guys. And listen, I know a lot about rehabbing injuries, and not from the medical side, but from the psychology side. And if you'd like to reach out, if you'd like to talk with me, I know you've just been devastated. Let's get together. Let's visit. Let's eat lunch. Let's do something. Well, the young man agreed to visit with me, and as he walked in the door, he was accompanied by a beautiful young lady, and I introduced myself, and she looked at me and smiled and said, and I know who you are, and I had no idea how we knew each other. And she said, you taught me and my sister how to rock climb. We attended a rock climbing gym that was owned by a police officer. It was also a cheerleading gym, and you had these classes. And if you attended so many classes, you'd take us outside to climb. And you went with me and my sister and my dad, and she remembered not just the climbing, but some of the life lessons. And that particular young lady was the granddaughter of a gentleman who occupied an office across the hall from me when I first opened up my little private practice at Century Office Center. He had an office across the hall from me and next to Mr. Walt Barty and Miss Ann Badgett of Walt Barty, Cohen and Bullion. We all would sit and visit and talk in the common lobby. I was the young man. I was very young when I opened up my private practice in 1998, and these guys were senior citizens and kind of finishing out their careers. He often said that he warned his wife. He said, I told my wife, I'm going to come in one day and say, hey, we're moving. I'm going to find 100 acres somewhere and we're going to move to it. Well, lo and behold, he did. And he bought this little 100 acres, and he was so proud of it. And I would go visit him. He would even let me hunt sometimes on the property. You drive up Paint Rock Valley and you turn off onto a dead end road, and you follow this little windy road around, and then you turn by an old house, an old paper-sided house that belonged to Miss Ara. And I do not know how old she was when I started visiting in that area. She would tell stories, and she lived in that one house all her life, and she didn't have power until the early part of the 2000s. She lived there her entire life, and I don't know how old she was, but one of the stories that she would tell us was about sneaking off down to Dry Creek and playing with the Indian children as they came through, and said her dad would whip her for sneaking off and playing with the Indians. You cross that little creek and you go up the side of the steep hill, and this gentleman had built a beautiful little home on this acreage. He borrowed my 30-30 rifle, my lever action Winchester, and he really, really tried hard to buy it. He said it was the most accurate shooting weapon that he'd ever shot, and it was a tack driver. I bought it for a birthday present years and years ago to myself while I was still in college. It was a tack driver, but despite his generous offer, I wouldn't part with the rifle. He had these two big dogs, these two big Great Danes. One was named Brutus, and the other one was named Duke. Uh, they were really interesting dogs. They didn't like it when he got under the car. So, he would be working on his vehicle and he would put the car up on jacks and he would get under there with a creeper, and either Brutus or Duke would grab him and drag him out from under. He had to put the dogs up or they wouldn't let him get under the car. The dogs would be put up at night, and I would drive over early in the morning and park at the bottom of the hill and walk up that steep hill and across the cutover and climb trees looking for deer. And then as the day wore on, I would climb down and walk across the yard, and the dogs would come out to greet me. And I didn't want to pet the dogs. I didn't want to get dog scent on my hunting stuff. And so I'd just ignore them. And Brutus would reach up and grab the back of my climbing stand and just sit. Well, 100+ pound dog sits down and holding you on a piece of equipment from behind. You're not going anywhere. So I'd have to reach way around and reach around and pet him. And until I scratched his ear to his satisfaction, he wouldn't let me go. I was being held hostage by this dog. And those dogs roamed those woods and until I petted him, he wouldn't let me go. I have such fond memories of this older gentleman. Such a good friendship with him and by extension, his granddaughters and his son. And after meeting this young lady and remembering the times that I'd spent on this fellow's property and the times that we'd spent talking and visiting and even helping him through some difficult times, I decided it was way past time to go visit him. So I drove out there to see him. I was already beginning to be sad as I drove into the property because the upper pasture hadn't been mowed. It was grown over in blackberries. The house was not as pristine as it was when I had first visited in those days. I parked my truck and climbed stairs that needed repair, and I could see him seated on a table by the window with his morning coffee. A little screened-in porch with a sliding door, and I didn't bother to knock. I knew that he saw me. I just slid the door open and I announced, "Lonnie Jones." His eyes were a little vacant, and he apologetically said, I know the name, but I don't remember how I know it." Well, I walked in, shook his hand, and gave him a backstory of how we knew each other and how I'd ended up there that morning. "Do you still make hickory bows?" No, not so much." "Well, sir, what are you doing with yourself these days?" "I'm just waiting to die." And there was a long, long silence. "Sir, are you telling me that your health is not good?" "No, I've got this little problem with my heart, and they don't think it's much, but I hope I'm dying. I hope it kills me." "Sir, how old are you?" I I don't know." "Sir, my dad is 87. I I might be that old, but I just don't know. I think I'm close to that." We talked just a little more. I mentioned remembering his dog. He said, "Oh yeah, yeah. I had this big dog named Samson." I never met a Samson, but his face lit up when I mentioned Brutus and Duke. Samson must have been a dog he'd had before them. Eventually, I said that I had to leave. I said I just had such a good remembrance of knowing you from the time we worked together and at least in the same building together, and I'd met your granddaughter again, and I just wanted to come out and visit you. You've been so very kind to me when I opened up my private practice and was a young man starting out his own business, and I just wanted to come by and check on you." And he teared up and his voice broke. And through his tears, he said, "Well, it means a lot that somebody would come by and check on me." We shook hands and I left, and I drove from the valley, and I could not keep my eyes clear. I wasn't sobbing, but the water would not stop rolling out of my eyes and down my cheeks. I'm probably the age he was when I went in the private practice 26 years ago, and so I'll be the same age he is now in 20 or 25 years. His wife is gone. His grandkids are grown and they have little time to go visit him. The little girl that I taught how to rock climb has a son who's 15. I drove home from the valley and I went for a 3-mile run. I know it won't keep me from getting old, and it definitely won't keep me from dying. We are all going to die, and although I don't fear it, and although I don't dread it, I'm not exactly going to initiate it. I've had some close calls. I've seen the exit door 2 or 3 times, and one time I think the sign lit up. But those were things that happened to me, not something I was initiating, and definitely not something I'm just sitting around waiting on. I drove out of the valley, and I guess you could say my heart was broken, or at least it was damaged, because this was going to be my last visit with this kind gentleman, and it will be my last visit. It will be the last time I ever see him. And as sad as it is to ponder the words, I'm just waiting to die. The only other thing more sad than a gentleman who feels like he's lost his zeal to live, the only thing more sad than those people who feel like they have nothing to live for, those who have wives and children and parents and friends and health and opportunity, but we delay and ignore the opportunities and the people because we're waiting for something else. After my degree, when my kids leave, when I have this much money, when the kids graduate, when I retire, when we get an opportunity to go, when we're not so stressed out, when we aren't as busy, all the things we could do that we don't do because we're so invested in getting to a certain mile marker before we stop and look at, smell, or pick the actual flowers that we're spending our lives planting. Now, by no means am I advocating a eat, drink, and be merry for tomorrow you die philosophy. I'm not promoting being cavalier or irresponsible with money obligations, preparations, or responsibilities. What I'm saying is that we're all actually waiting to die. And since we don't know when that eventuality might be, why don't we just do some things rather than wait to do them? Don't wait until you can hike the Appalachian Trail. Just walk around in your backyard. Walk slow enough to remember those little holes that those little pincher worms, the larva of the tiger beetle. You stick those straws down in there and they bite them and you pull them out. Those holes are still in your backyard. You just walk so fast, or all you do in your backyard is mow, that you never notice them anymore. They didn't go anywhere. You just quit looking for them. Don't wait until you can go salmon fish in the waters of Alaska. Go to the county lake and catch some perch. Don't wait till you go climbing in Colorado. Just go hike to the top of Kill Mountain. Don't wait until you go to the Arctic Circle and look out at night and see the aurora borealis. Go out at night and look at the stars and see if you can see one fall. Shine your light in the backyard and see if you can see the glowing eyes of a wolf spider as it hunts. Shine your light and see if there's bunnies or foxes back there. Don't wait till you go to the Colorado Rockies to see mule deer or elk. Just go driving in the late afternoon around the old cotton fields and the mowed cornfields and see if you can see deer just walking out. Don't wait till you have the money to go whitewater rafting on the old Ocoee. Wait till it rains and put a bottle in the ditch and chase it down the culvert. Walk around slow enough to see the bees on the flowers and notice where the birds nest in your yard. Take a day off and do something. Take a day off and do nothing. Draw or paint or read or dream. Just put your phone down. Do simple things. Be with people. Be by yourself. As the course of time goes on, there will be plenty of days when the only thing you can do is sit and look at your phone. Whatever it is, however you find your soul, however you find others, however you make connections, however you find peace or enjoyment, don't wait. Don't wait to do those things. Do some of those things now. Be with people, enjoy the simple things. Everyday life is an adventure. Because you see, the only thing more regrettable than waiting to die is waiting to live. Using the tool of shortwave radio, World Christian Broadcasting literally covers the world every day with the gospel. They use 2 large curtain antennas. One is located in Anchor Point, Alaska, and the other in Madagascar. They send out messages that are recorded at their international home in Franklin, Tennessee. They make available 40 hours of broadcast every day. The broadcasts are made in English, Chinese, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, English for Africa, and Arabic. They would love for your group to visit them. You can bring your ladies group, your youth group, or your men's group. Just give them a call at 615-371-8707, 615-371-8707, or you can go to worldchristian.org, find the Donate Here button, and make a financial contribution to support this work that literally covers the world every day with the gospel. World Christian Broadcasting, in cooperation with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure.